Today we're going to look at tips for developing writing prompts for post-reading activities, and this is put in the context of a scaffolded reading experience. Scaffold, we want to provide structure or some sort of scaffold that enables struggling readers to read and comprehend independently. That's the goal of creating this structure so that they can do that. The scaffolded reading lesson consists of 3 parts. Some pre-reading activity designed to get them ready, a during reading activity, which is usually reading with a buddy or reading silently. We want to avoid round-robin reading always. And then a post-reading activity, and that's what we are looking at today. Now, the purpose of the post-reading activity is not to see if they have read, not to see if they have comprehended, but to get them to enter into the story or the text, to extend or apply some idea or imagine or think about or connect or interact with the content or others. Is to interact with the story somehow. It should not be designed, as I said, to see if they have read the chapter or to see if they understand the chapter. There are other places to do that. That is not the purpose. Remember, a teacher's #1 job is to help children fall in love with books. So, it is a reading lesson, not a writing lesson, so it should be kept simple and short, usually 2 to no more than 10 minutes in duration. So usually there's some sort of simple pre-write, simple like when you think about a writing where they draft or get a sloppy copy down and then they share with someone. This usually works best if you have reading logs or journals instead of workbooks where students respond every day with 2 stories that they are reading in an ideal setting. In a reading class, it would be reading practice. All students would be reading books that they have selected that are at their independent level or below and that are interesting. And at the end of reading practice, you'd say, okay, boys and girls, here's our prompt. You describe an interesting character or some such thing. All right? So here are some basic tips. And it's really easy to design bad prompts. I've done it a lot myself. So you always want to test the prompt out on yourself. How would I respond to this prompt? That helps you understand. If you have trouble with it, I guarantee you your students will. You want to avoid prompts like write a story about or write a new ending for. That's a pretty abstract thing to do, all right? And again, the purpose is to extend, to apply, to interact somehow. Writing, this is not a writing lesson, but a reading lesson plan. You don't want to frustrate your students. Sometimes with younger students, you want to create some sort of scaffold. You want this to be in the zone of proximal development. I like blank because, and give them 2 reasons. That's just an example of a scaffold. There's a lot of different ways to provide a scaffold. You always want to celebrate the idea. You don't want to be correcting here. There are other places to correct for grammar and punctuation. We celebrate ideas. Length requirements, rarely. Write 2 paragraphs about. If it's an authentic writing activity, you write to say what you have to say. If you are done saying something, well then find something else to write about. Rarely require students to write a specific length. Sometimes I say to young readers, at least 2 sentences, but rarely you want to say write 2 paragraphs about, all right? Rarely. And with real struggling readers and writers, writing can be overwhelming. So sometimes I say, all right, we're going to write 1 sentence, 1 idea, all right? So for really struggling readers who struggle to write as well, they get overwhelmed as soon as they hear the word write. So with these, I generally say, okay, we're going to write 1 sentence. Tell me what you think is, all right? And you want to write for real audiences. That makes writing come alive. So sometimes after they've written for 2 to 6 minutes, I'd say, okay, turn to a neighbor and share. Or trade with your neighbor and have them write their response right on the journal or share in small group. All right, around the circle, each of you share what you wrote today. That makes writing come alive. You want students to write from within themselves to the greatest extent possible. Notice there's not a right answer for any of these prompts. What do you think about? What did you notice? What do you want to say about? All right? You get the idea. internal writing prompts, that's what I call them, versus external. There's no correct answer. Parallel stories are also interesting. In this story, Pat was blank. Describe a time when you were blank. So you pick some element in the story and you have students describe a time or a feeling or a situation that parallels or can connect with it in somehow. Bad questions. Ugh. You want to avoid prompts that induce one-word response. And always, how did you feel when? Happy? Sad? There's 6 basic emotions, by the way. So avoid these types of writing prompts. The how do you feel prompt. That's a really bad one. Also, these are bad prompts. Write a story about, describe the part in the story where, describe the theme of, and I never get for narrative text a theme. When I'm reading narrative text, I'm enjoying the story. I'm not thinking about theme and resolution. And all the chapters in the books that I read, I was reading last night, there's no theme or resolution in this chapter. It's just a good story. These are all detailed questions. They are not internal writing prompts. Remember, it is a reading lesson, not a writing lesson, and always test the prompts out on yourself. All right, good strategy. Post-reading activity, writing prompt.